is Dr. Yasmin A. Flores, and welcome to our second half of our episode with Danny McDaniel from Danny's Music Box. Danny, it was lovely talking to you in the first episode about your life and a little bit about you and your dad and how he started the store, right? So now we're sitting in your current store, which is here located on the east side on Montana.
Correct.
Very close to the Whataburger here. I know this Whataburger because I live in this area.
Yeah.
So, and this is located behind a ballet.
Yeah, we're in the same building as the British Ballet Academy.
Okay.
Ironically, we had sold them that building about 15 years ago when we bought our other building that we had the issue with.
Right.
But so we ended up moving back in here about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And just in the warehouse section is just a very large repair shop, and we do sell and a lot of special order, mail order.
Oh, nice. Very good. And so we were talking about some of the weirdest things that you've repaired. And now, so you have all these guitars around you. You have all these drums. And you said you also have a shop through eBay as
yes.
well.
Yeah,
so you sell through eBay.
Yeah, we cheat. Instead of doing our own website, we just do it on eBay.
A lot of folks do.
Yeah.
I know. That's how I bought my A clarinet.
Yeah.
I bought it from somebody on eBay, and it's a wonderful clarinet. And so now, if a student, let's talk about from the student perspective, and so guitarists and percussionists and some of the brands that you sell. So we were talking about guitars a moment ago, and I told you I'm really only familiar with Alvarez because, again, I'm not a guitarist. That's the one I've heard. What would a beginner student on guitar, what would you recommend that they play?
If you're going to start and you're new, classical style guitar is always the bet. And then we go back to the foundations of when you're learning the classical style music and you're learning how to read music.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people come in, well, I want to play rock and roll. But if you can start in the school system, then you can start with the classical thing. When you learn how to use the techniques from classical music, playing rock and roll is going to be a breeze. And
right.
It's so much easier.
Absolutely.
And it's really, really helpful for people to realize that, because like, oh, I just want to go straight into playing. And you can. If you want to, you can grab electric guitar and start playing on it and learning. But if you want to do it correctly, start with the classical guitar, go through the steps, learn everything you need to learn. Yeah. And then at that point, you can accelerate to whatever else you want to do. You want to play country or rock or whatever. But that foundation is going to be your strongest point. And that's the neat thing that all the school districts are starting to do now, is classical guitar lessons.
Right.
Yeah. It is really interesting because we got these guys trying to play heavy metal on a classical, but you can do it. You know what I mean?
Technically, you can, right?
Technically, you can, yeah. But it's kind of neat. But the more we can make it easy for people to get into any kind of music, the organization that we're involved with, which is NAM, National Association of Music Merchants, have really been trying to save music in schools. If you can get on their website, take a look at all the programs and incentives they help for people, because we got the sports guys wanting to get rid of music, you know what I mean? And, you know, because it's, and we can't, and it's shrinking and shrinking, and we have to keep fighting back, and keep it in the schools and letting them not just play classical and band and orchestra kind of stuff, but actually play regular, non-conventional instruments, bass guitars and drums and synthesizers, stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's music, people don't, and I think my colleagues in the other arts will agree that music to me is probably the most complex of all the arts, because it's more than just, so there's the music, there's the interpretation of the music, there's the scientific aspects, which is, like intonation, mathematical. So you're using math as well in the music theory component. All these things that tie in all these different areas that they're learning in high school, because they're learning about science, they're learning about, about math, about English creativity, right? And trying to write stories. When you perform, I've told my students, one of the things I do when I get nervous, right? Because if you've ever performed in front of a crowd, the larger the you stand up there and you get super nervous and you start to think, oh my gosh, there's 200, there's 300, there's 500 people here. And so I tell my students, if you can create a story in your mind that's playing as you're playing your instrument, and you can go through this story right in your head and just really focus in on the story that you're trying to tell. It really helps to pull you out of the reality of like there's 500 people watching you.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's that aspect to music as well. And some of these aspects are kind of lost in the arts a little bit in some of the other arts, right? But so you're absolutely right. Music is very important in the schools. All the arts are, I think. And I know at one point the state of Arizona had pulled a lot of their arts programs out.
Yes.
And they had replaced them with what, aviation, I think?
Oh, yeah.
Something really kind of bizarro. We're in Texas, so we can talk about Arizona and all the odd things that it did. But yeah, so I'm glad. It's my understanding that I think they're starting to bring the arts back into Arizona schools. And so we have seen a decline, but it's so important. And even because we've all taught students. I don't know if you ever taught private. Did you ever teach privately?
A few drum lessons.
Okay.
Yeah.
A few drum lessons. And I can tell you, I always get, sometimes, not always, sometimes I've had wonderful students, but sometimes I'll get those students where the parent is the one pushing them into the lesson.
And they don't want to be there.
Don't want to be
miserable. There. You just want to give them a magazine and say, I'll come back in an hour.
Exactly.
You don't even
Yeah. And so with those cases, it's always a matter of like, you try your hardest to get something, to find something for that student to like, right? To hang on to, because otherwise, they're bored to tears. And so we've all been there. So now tell me, so you've worked with, we talked about beginning strings. But you don't do violin. You don't do those strings, only guitar.
Yeah, just the MI, musical instrument style of products and drums, basses, guitars, synthesizers, DJ equipment, sound systems, things of that nature. Okay. One thing I wanted to hit on too, the NAM, National Association of Music Merchants, has all these wonderful studies about children who are involved in music programs and how much better they do in their regular schoolwork.
Absolutely.
And what it does when you text your text in your artistic brain and you let it calm down enough to play music, and then all of a sudden everything else is so much clearer on the calculus side or whatever. Yeah. So that's something a lot of people really need. If they could understand how strong it is to help people, then they wouldn't want to be getting rid of these things.
Exactly.
You know? And that's the thing. And there's so many actual studies on the NAM website. Print them out and you can say, wow, this is amazing. I didn't know this, which is kind of neat.
Absolutely. I didn't know that about NAM. Yeah. And because it's one of the things that I hate to say it, but I don't pay too much attention to NAM because that's the merchant side. Exactly. Right. Yeah. And so, and speaking of, so we have our music business degree at EPCC, and that is something that, and I'm glad I have you here because now I can actually talk to you about the music business and all the different things one can do with his associates. Again, I tell students from my perspective, I explain like Mr. Olivas owns a store, right? You can own a music store. And then what are some of the other things that people can do? We talk a little bit about like managing an artist.
Yes.
Right. So you talked earlier about your dad and how your dad played with bands. Do you know anything about that management side?
A little bit.
Okay.
It's a little tricky. I worked with the project years back that it was actually a pretty big project, and it was looking really, really well, and there was a falling out at the very end of it, unfortunately.
Okay.
Right when I sold it to Sam's.
Okay.
They placed they committed to a $2 to $4 million CD order with the artist I was working with. And then, long story short, it just didn't work out. Not because of them, because of the artists and the parents had a different envision of what was going on.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Unfortunately, but there's it's just such a wide open book for people now. The way music is. Before 30 years ago, 40 years ago, if you wanted to play music, you went to Utah, pretty much community college.
Right.
You just now you can do it all on your own. You can YouTube how to do this, how to do that. Right. We talked earlier about some of the recordings can be not true and correct because there's not a producer.
Right.
It's awesome tools available to you on the internet, but don't think that you're so on top of things that you can do what a producer does or do what somebody who has been educated in music.
Right.
You need those people to steer you in the right direction and to make sure it's correct and not, people get out there and they're playing in the wrong key and there's all kinds of weird things going on and nobody's there to tell them you can't do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they're like, well, who needs a producer? Well, every musician needs a producer.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, so we were talking earlier about how mixing is so important.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example. We were listening to a Haydn string quartet the other day in Music Appreciation. Yes. And the whole time I was furious for two reasons. Number one, the classroom is a very narrow classroom. It's carpeted.
Yes.
And there's a vent right in the middle of the classroom.
Yes.
And the recording had a lot of bass.
Yeah.
So there's all this like whoa, whoa, whoa going on in the speakers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Plus the air conditioning vent, it kind of made the whole like experience a nightmare for my students. Yeah. And I felt bad for them because I was like, ugh, they're not entertained by this at all. And I heard the same piece, different classroom, and it was actually a different recording as well, where the mixing was better because there wasn't so much bass.
Yes.
The bass really made it very hard to hear.
Muddy.
Yeah. Very muddy.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Exactly. And so there's all these Haydn string quartets. He has these little bursts of like violin, like super high arpeggios and scales and stuff like that. And so you're sitting there going like, with so much bass, like who the heck mixed this, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's got to be mixed, and that's the thing.
That's right.
Like, what is mixing? Was like you're gonna make an omelet, you put eggs and everything in there, and you mix it up, and that's what you do with music. You mix the sounds. You don't want to be too bass heavy. You don't want to be too mid heavy. That's why there's engineers, you know. And another thing, going back to the issue with people posting their own music that they make, is you could pick out the mistakes in it pretty quick. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
And but yeah, and that's not to get off track on that.
No.
It's an awesome tool though. It's really, really neat to have. But we gotta still make everybody know that music degrees are crucial. You know what I mean?
They are.
And I'm sure that with the advent of technology and everything, they're going to probably start thinning out on how many people actually go to do it because they think in their mind they can do it without.
Right.
But no, it's something. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
If you want to learn how to play the instrument, it's going to take a little bit of time.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember, Guitar Hero. Remember Guitar Hero was real popular.
Yeah.
But it never occurred to the creators of Guitar Hero or to some of these other computerized games, right? To actually create a real instrument.
Exactly, yeah.
And teach the students to actually play it. Like you could technically, for example, get a clarinet where it's a piece of plastic with the holes.
For working components.
Right, exactly. And if you wanted to make it padded like a flute, right? Because again, it's a game.
Yeah.
But you could teach students how to play the instrument.
Exactly. You already got them reeled in.
Right.
Let's keep them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
instead, we created this plastic guitar with 4 buttons that don't really function like
they're not a guitar, but it's just all about the attitude of the rock and roll star.
Right.
And I think the sad thing too is people think, oh my God, I want to play a guitar or I want to play a cello. Oh, it's so beyond what I can do. I'll never be able to do that. It's not that hard.
Exactly.
You wake up every day and you go to your job and, if you're a plumber or whatever, it took a little time to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Music's the same way too, but music, when you learn how to play, will be with you your entire life.
That's right.
And one good thing about a guitar is you can sing and play a guitar at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's one of the only instruments you can take and be the life of a party anywhere you go. You need to plug in.
That's right.
Can't do that with a piano, too heavy to carry. Saxophone, I like to hear you sing and play at the same time. Clarinet, any of these kinds of things. So the kind of cool thing with a guitar is it's neat. And the guitar is normally not somebody's main instrument, it's normally one of their instruments.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and that's the thing too, and it really helps to compose and stuff. Just like having a piano in your house. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So who taught you how to play percussion? Was it your dad?
My father did. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And was your dad classically trained?
No.
No.
He was just a guy that went out on the road and learned how to play. He was originally a trumpet player.
Okay.
And then one of the bands needed a drummer, and he went and got a drum set and started playing around with it. It was so funny. And before he had passed, he told me this story. He goes, oh yeah, we were in, and my dad is just one of these guys who was just blessed to just be next to greatness his whole life. He knew, I mean, there's so many odd stories about him that occurred back in the 50s. He was like, wow, you know, we went into this club down on Hollywood Boulevard, and we just said, hey, you guys hire? And he goes, oh yeah, well, we need a band for tonight. And he goes, well, what kind of band? And he didn't even know how to play. And he went and got a piano player, and he went and bought a set of drums, and they just got through. And he got hooked on it. And at that point, you know what I mean, he continued to play.
That's crazy.
And all this like super just weird historical things that have happened. Not a lot of people know about. But he started in the 50s, and he was good friends with a gentleman, Bill Carson. It worked for Fender USA. And the funny thing about Fender is a lot of people don't realize that Leo Fender did not play guitar.
Oh.
He built guitars. That was it.
Oh.
And I remember my dad was telling me, he goes, he was staying at Bill's house, and he goes, I woken up, and I'm like, hey, who is it? I looked down, it was Leo Fender. And he goes, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm getting a guitar from under the bed, because my dad was staying in the guest room.
Okay.
And he goes, what? He goes, what is it? The Broadcaster, which was the first Telecaster electric guitar.
Okay.
He goes, no, it's one we're going to build for the rock market. It's coming. We have this new generation of music that's going to be coming, so we're going to build this thing called the Stratocaster. And he goes, and my dad, he goes, I told him, he goes, you know what? Don't do it. Just stick with the Telecaster. You own the market. If you try and bring something else out, or you have P-Bass, Jazz Bass, and Telecaster.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, we're going to try it. When he went, my dad was sleeping on top of the first Stratocaster prototype.
How about that?
And it was just so crazy. And he being a drummer, he didn't really care too much about it.
Right.
But it was just a little tidbit of unusual, that would never happen. And I'm like, well, I'm glad Leo didn't listen to you, because Stratocaster is probably the #1 selling guitar through, Strats and Les Pauls, but Strats.
Of course.
Yeah. That was kind of funny. So a lot of really fun little stories from back in the day. And again, these people were not big and famous back then. They were just regular guys.
Sure. Right. And you hear that a lot about that era, the 1950s and 1960s. And so what I'm thinking while you're telling me this story about your dad, who picked up a drum set and went to go play, I'm thinking of the sound back then, because in the 50s and 60s, drumming was rather far more simple than it became in the late 60s, right?
Exactly, yeah.
1950s, I'm thinking late 50s, early 60s, the Beatles. I'm thinking Ringo Starr. One of my favorite percussionists, who I call my husband, but he's actually doesn't know me from Adam, right? Is Stuart Copeland.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah. Big old tall guy too. He's like 6'5".
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
and so I watch a lot of his interviews on YouTube, because I was a huge fan of the Police, right, when I was little. And so when he talks about Ringo, you can tell he's being polite, but it really was a very simple click.
Yeah.
Right? It was simple American rock, late 50s, early 60s for the Beatles. And so he's trying not to say that it's overly simple, but he's also like, in comparison, apples and oranges between Stuart Copeland and Ringo.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so can you tell me a little bit about, now, did you ever play, you mentioned that you did play in a few bands, right?
Well, just local high school stuff like that.
Okay.
I mean, I was so into the business side. And actually, this is probably just the most horrible thing I could probably say, but as a 15 and a 16-year-old kid, the thing you think about is trying to be popular and chasing girls, right? So I was in a band, and my dad had the big rock and roll music store, and you got to be in a band. Well, like Knucklehead, I decided to do a DJ thing also.
Okay.
And my dad was he was pissed. He was like, it's not live music. I don't understand this. So I remember coming home. I said, okay, Dad, I'm 15. Yeah. Right? And this is the first gig I did with just a little horrible PA system. It was $150.
Yeah.
And I said, look, see that? $150 I got paid for one night. And he goes, well, that's pretty good.
What
I
year
said,
was this?
This was in 78, right around 78, maybe.
So $150 is good.
Well, it's a lot of money when you're a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, and look else what I got. He goes, what? Phone numbers? I said, yeah, phone numbers are girls' phone numbers. So I got paid and I got all the phone numbers. Now, when I go with the band, we get 150.
Yeah.
I got to lug the PA.
Right.
Okay. I'm there an hour before everybody and an hour after everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time we get paid, we split it and I walk away with $35. $30.
Right. Because you got to
lucky.
split the 150.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I said, so I'm going to still play in the band because that's what I love to do, but I need to make, I'm going to make some money. So anyway, he was so upset about it. And after a while, he was like, okay, I understand it.
Right.
I don't hate it so much, but I understand it. But it was kind of funny.
So were you going, did you ever take an interest in rap music, or was that?
This was before rap. I mean, well, Rapper's Delight actually came out and that became something.
Right, 78,
yeah,
79.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's when it started coming in. Back in the day, then I was playing old funk music, which in my opinion is one of the best musics ever made because it's a real band.
Yeah.
And you can dance to it.
Yeah.
And you got a drummer, you got a bass player. Hell of a bass player in most of these bands.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really neat. So I was playing a bunch of this old soul and funk music.
How about that?
James
James Brown.
Oh, yeah, James Brown, the Bar-Kays, Brothers Johnson.
Okay.
I mean, all these old guys, Parliament, George Clinton. I mean, these guys,
Okay, right.
Michael Jackson. I mean, you got on the dance floor, you were going to dance. You know what I mean?
Right.
The music was going to make you dance.
Okay.
And I like doing that when we played rock and roll.
Uh-huh.
You can play a lot of stuff, but there's only so much you can dance to, right?
Sure.
So it was a lot of fun back then. We really explored and kind of got out of the beaten path of what I should have stayed in, and I just had a good time, with it. But
when you do systems for, like, because you mentioned that you work on systems for people,
yes.
right? On location at their business or at their whatever it is. So they hire you to come in and you suggest products to them?
Well, they can. I don't do so much install anymore like I used to.
Okay.
But most people will bring their components here and I'll fix them and they'll take them back.
I see.
But we used to go in and we used to do full club installs, building clubs from the sound and lighting, touring systems, Conjunto Primavera has been around forever. We did their touring system, which was a massive 110,000 watt, just huge system.
Wow.
That was 20 years ago.
Right.
A long time ago.
Right.
So the audio and visual has changed so much.
Yes, it has.
With digital and LED lighting, it has changed
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
It's completely different. Line array systems as opposed to ground tack sound systems, and it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world.
Right.
And it's a very
And
expensive world too.
I think back to the 80s. I was telling my students one day about in stereo. Remember in stereo in
Yes.
the 1980s?
Yes.
This little thing would pop up on the bottom of, it was like Alf.
Yeah.
Remember Alf?
Oh, yeah,
NBC.
yeah.
And it was like mid 80s.
Yeah.
And I explained to my students, I said, right,
Stereo
and
with the
in
little
stereo.
the little sound waves on the side of it. Yeah.
And it was because people had they had put in these huge speakers on either side of the television,
Yeah.
so that they could hear everything as though they were in the room
Yeah.
in the sitcom.
It was
right?
so easy because there were outputs on the TV with power, so you get a little set of stereo monitors,
Right.
and you had a really nice sound.
Exactly.
It was so cool. Yeah.
Those speakers, which were taller than me,
Yeah.
right, in many of these home
Yeah.
entertainment systems,
Yes.
right, they're now compact,
Small, yeah, and
Bluetooth,
powerful. Exactly.
everything. And it's amazing to me because in our lifetime,
Yeah.
we have seen things go from like the size of this room, right, which a computer would have
yeah.
been the size of this
Oh,
room
exactly,
in
yeah.
the 60s.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I took a class at community college,
Hmm.
and it was Mr. Duffy was the instructor, and it was a computer class.
Okay.
And we talked about the first computer, vacuum tube-based computer.
Yes.
Was like 3,000 square foot room with just tubes everywhere to do like 2 or 3 functions. It was crazy.
That's insane.
Anyhow, we were talking about
The computer system.
Now this was in 80, 81,
Okay.
and they were out. Okay, computers are coming, and it's going to take so many years, and you're going to be able to do this.
Mhm.
Well, it accelerated so quickly. What they thought was going to happen by 1990 happened in 83. And what they thought was going to happen in 2000 happened in 85. So our ability in the computer world was so much more advanced than we could even comprehend using it for. You know what I mean? Which is kind of unusual. Would you think that something that was supposed to progress in a timely manner, just like AI, boom, it was all of a sudden you had all these tools at your disposal.
Exactly.
And you're like, wow. And I remember the first time I sat down and typed something on a DOS-based computer, I was like, wow.
Oh, I know.
Backspace, I don't have to get whiteout. You know?
Right, exactly.
It was like, wow, this is a game changer, you know. And it was and it was so neat. And now you look back and it's just like we're dealing with the AI situation. You know what
exactly.
I mean? 4 years later, it's pretty scary.
Yeah. It is scary but exciting.
Yeah.
I think that, as was the case with the internet, right? The internet kind of like escaped everybody.
Yeah.
And then suddenly everybody was trying to corral it back in.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the same thing is going to happen with AI.
Yeah.
We haven't seen the peak of it yet.
Yeah. No, we haven't.
No, we haven't, because there's still a few things where you can still kind of catch that it's fake.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah.
But so the peak is coming. Once that happens, then I think that's when we're going to start to have the controls, right? They're going to start to bring in all these controls like, whoa, everybody.
Oh, yeah. And it's so scary. I remember seeing, I don't know, it might have been maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when IBM put out the computer Watson. And if you remember that, the way they call it Watson, because it was AI. You could feed it information, it would tell you. And they were sending it to all the hospitals. And you could probably Google this and find it online. And the guy was talking about there was a team of like maybe 12 doctors. And he goes, okay, so we're doctors, you know what I mean? And we're going to outperform this machine.
Okay.
That's not a problem. We got 12 of the smartest minds. And so they're talking about it. And all of a sudden they put the question in for the patient. And they said, okay, well, we figured out by the time we all talked about it, it took about 8 hours. 12 doctors, 8 hours. Yeah. We put the symptoms in Watson, and in 3 seconds we had an answer.
Right.
He goes, so yeah, it can be a very helpful tool, and it can save lives, but it can also take away.
Right.
You know what I mean? Is the thing. And I remember watching it, and that was before, and I was thinking, wow, that's kind of scary, but it would be neat if you could ask a machine, a computer, you can get
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, and I just did this weekend with ChatGPT. I asked it all my symptoms. It told me exactly what to take, and that's why I'm semi-alive and well today.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, I have a friend prepping a lawsuit on AI. Right?
Wow.
I can't believe it. I'm just like, just get a lawyer. He goes, no, I can get everything I need here. And then by the time I take him, I'm going to probably save 50 or 60 billable hours, because I'm going to give them all the information they need.
That's amazing.
Okay, that's pretty,
That is amazing. Yeah. Mr. McDaniels, it's been lovely sitting here in your store and taking all of this in, all the guitars, all the straps. Those are beautiful straps.
Oh,
and of course all of these drums. But we could easily go on for hours, but sadly we have come to the end of our program here. But if any of you all are interested in Danny's Music Box, it is located here on Montana, right by the Goodwill in Whataburger, right across here on McRae in Montana. And stop by. He's just right in the back of the ballet studio here, and check out what he has. Bring your guitars and your percussion instruments if you need to get them fixed. This is your guy. Lovely to talk to you today.
Pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. And if you all want more information about EPCC, you know where to find me. YFLORE14 @epcc.edu. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you guys. Absolutely.